Jurassic Park is frightening in the dark. All the dinosaurs are running wild. Someone shut the fence off in the rain. I admit it's kinda eerie, but this proves my chaos theory, and I don't think I'll be coming back again. Oh no!
Mike, after careful consideration, I've decided not to endorse this podcast, FilmBookCast, the official podcast of FilmBook.com. My name is Mike Smith. Joining me, as always, is a man who spent so much time wondering if he could, he didn't stop to think about whether he should.
Mike DeCriscio.
How you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing just well. I before I knew what I had, I slapped it on a lunchbox. I patented it, put it up for sale,
and now you're selling it. You're selling it. If you've never listened to FilmBookCast before, first we start with some film news and then move on into some discussions where Mike and I each discuss whatever piece of media we've been consuming lately, and then after that, we move on into our featured review. This week, we are discussing the latest film from director J.A. Bayona and the fifth film in the Jurassic Park series, Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. Now, Mike, we reviewed Jurassic World way back in 2015. That was like episode 10 of this podcast. We have grown so much as people since then, I assume.
Mm-hmm. We have our own microphones now.
Exactly. To refresh our memories, you are not the biggest fan of Jurassic World, as I recall.
No, I hate that movie.
Yeah, so that's cool. That's fun. That's fun for everyone. I remember I haven't seen Jurassic World since it was in theaters. I didn't hate it, but I definitely was not like a fan. But still, Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom was a movie I was tentatively excited about. I don't know. The switch from Colin Trevorrow to J.A. Bayona was kind of exciting. The idea that they were kind of riffing on the Lost World instead of Jurassic Park was kind of exciting. So we'll see how it actually played out in the movie when we get to our review. But right now, we got to get into some film news.
Hi! It's time for... What? It's time for... It's time for... Film news! Hi! It's time for... What? It's time for... It's time for... Film news! Film news!
All right, so it's time for film news here on FilmBookCast, Mike, and we've got a few things to get through today. The first is a bit of superhero news that I wanted to talk about, and that is this. In the DC universe, as you know, Wonder Woman 2 is happening. Patty Jenkins is back as director. Gal Gadot, of course, back as Wonder Woman. Kristen Wiig is playing the villain of that movie, which is just insane. And it seems like there's going to be a time jump. Obviously, the first movie took place in World War I. This one is going to be called Wonder Woman 1984. To be followed by Wonder Woman 2049, I'm sure. So obviously this one will take place in the 80s. But the surprising thing about this, when the title was revealed, Patty Jenkins also tweeted out a picture of a character who will be in the movie, one that we didn't really expect to be back in this movie. Chris Pine is returning in the role of Steve Trevor, or else we think it's Steve Trevor. We know that we know for a fact that it is Chris Pine.
Right.
That much we can confirm. But Steve Trevor very memorably died in Wonder Woman. So how could he possibly be in Wonder Woman 1984 as the same age as his character in the first movie, Mike?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I saw someone on Reddit, I think, point out that if you're a white guy named Steve that dies mysteriously in a plane crash in a superhero movie, like, you're probably fine. Apparently.
Yeah.
So, I'm down for Chris Pine to be back if he's his son or some weird shit. I don't know. I saw people talking about that also.
Yes, I saw that too. I would think maybe his grandson, more likely.
Yeah. Yes, it's World War I to 1984.
It's like a 60-year gap, yeah. So it seems... I mean, it definitely seems odd, and maybe he is actually just playing Steve Trevor, like the same character. But in Justice League, like, he still seemed pretty dead, right? Like, they referenced that in Justice League, the fact that he's dead. So it would be weird if he was back in Wonder Woman 1984 and Wonder Woman knows about it. But at the same time, like, nothing in Justice League makes sense, so you can just add that to the chalkboard, I guess. Like,
yeah, if I remember correctly, that was like a pretty significant portion of her character motivation was that he sacrificed himself to save humanity. Yeah, so she's going to.
It's one of the only things I liked about Justice League, like the way it kind of completes that arc from Batman vs Superman to Wonder Woman to this. Like, it sort of works in that way. So, I don't mind if they're desecrating Justice League. It's not a movie I hold sacred to my heart, obviously. But with this movie, like, I think Chris Pine is a good presence. I think he was a great presence in Wonder Woman. I think he was a great addition to that movie. But I am a little on the fence about his inclusion here. I just don't know if it'll fit. Maybe he is playing Steve Trevor's grandson, but in that case, like, is Wonder Woman going to hook up with him again, or like, what's the plan there? Like,
that's weird.
It just seems weird, you know.
Maybe it's like a stunt casting thing where like maybe it's a case of mistaken identity in a crowd, and she sees him, and like they just use that photo to like make everyone freak out about it.
I mean, he's just playing some guy named like Chris or something, and yeah. What if he's just playing Chris Pine?
Chris Pine. Oh my god.
in the year 1984, but like his age today.
A time-traveling Chris Pine stumbles onto set.
But now we would have to wonder, would that time-traveling Chris Pine have starred in the 2017 movie Wonder Woman?
All right, this is...
Playing his ancestor, Steve Trevor. Because it's based on a true story in this fictional universe. This is the new nightmare of Wonder Woman movies.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Good. I'm glad we've cracked the case. This is going to be great now. I'm super stoked.
Patty Jenkins, this one's for free. I know you listen.
Anyway, so that's some pretty big superhero news. Actually, one other superhero news story that I wanted to bring up, Mike. As you know, Sony is working on a lot of Spider-Man spin-offs right now. Right, they got Venom in the works. We did talk about, I think, before that they're not working on that Silver Sable Black Cat movie anymore.
It's tragic. It's a tragic.
Totally tragic. And there's a couple other things that they were working on, like a Morbius movie and stuff like that. But recently, it came out that they are supposedly working on a movie that I would actually really want to see, based on a character that I was there from the beginning for. I saw this character's origins, and I loved this character so much. They're working on a Silk movie.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
Yeah, I love Silk. Cindy Moon, I think, is one of the best characters in recent years in Marvel Comics. She just debuted in, like, 2014, so it's surprising that they're all, like, usually, like, they're basing these movies on characters that have been around for, like, 20, 30, 40 years or whatever. So it's surprising that they're kind of moving this on the fast track, but Silk is a pretty popular character, so I get it. But yeah, anyway, if you're not familiar with Silk, Silk is a character who was bitten by the same radioactive spider as Spider-Man. She has basically all of his powers, but she has organic webs instead of the mechanical webs that he does and all that kind of stuff. And she's great. She's super funny. I loved her origins in the Spider-Man comics, and I would be super into a Silk movie.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I know she like sort of does like an undercover Shield thing with Black Cat. Yeah. Where like she joins their like cat burglar ring or whatever. So like that'd be cool. Yeah. So I don't know. I would definitely be hyped for a Silk movie.
Yeah, definitely. Now, have you seen the trailer for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
Yes.
Time to swing, just like I taught you.
When did you teach me that?
I didn't. It's a little joke for team building.
Hey, guys.
Okay, who are you?
I'm Gwen Stacy.
Come on. How many more spider people are there?
Save it for Comic-Con.
What's Comic-Con?
Let's go!
Okay. I am fucking in love with that.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that movie. I mean, it looks so visually cool. Like the animation looks like nothing I've seen before. And I'm really excited about that. But then they throw in Spider-Gwen at the end, and I'm like, what?
That's the movie they should really be making. I mean, Silk is dope. Like, I'm in.
Yes, yeah, definitely. But the fact that they got Spider-Gwen thrown in there, and I assume there's going to be several other Spider people in that movie, because it is based in Spider-Verse, which is the story that Silk was kind of introduced for. Like, she was introduced like a few issues before Spider-Verse started, and she played a pretty major role in that arc. So I am excited for that movie very much, and I think Silk could make an appearance in that movie. Who knows? But right now they got Miles Morales, Peter Parker, and Spider-Gwen, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more in that movie, and I'm pretty stoked about it.
Hashtag where's Spider-Ham?
Yes. I will be shocked if there's no Spider-Ham in that movie, because
there's gonna be.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller worked on that movie. Like, they wrote the script, I think. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, they were hired on that around the same time they were hired for Solo, I think, actually.
Wow.
And obviously one of them worked out and one of them didn't. But but yeah, I'm really excited about the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie, and this potential Silk movie sounds very cool too. And speaking of Star Wars, actually, speaking of Solo, that movie didn't do too well at the box office, Mike. Or at least it did okay. Like, I feel like it actually did pretty good for a normal movie.
Right.
But because it's a Star Wars movie, and because Disney basically turned it into the biggest budgeted Star Wars movie of all time because they had to reshoot the entire thing. Disney is a little trepidatious about its future with the Star Wars spin-offs. Solo did not do as well as it wanted it to, and so they're possibly putting their Star Wars spin-offs on hold. That includes the Obi-Wan movie and that Boba Fett movie. Now, do you think this is a good move by Disney, Mike? Are you on board with this?
Yes, but also no. I don't know. I'm confused about this.
Okay.
Because I want Rian Johnson's trilogy.
Well, that's still happening. So the
Right.
the spin-offs is only really like the character-based stuff, like Obi-Wan and Boba Fett. But in the report that came out, like they're focusing on Episode 9, and then after that, it's Rian Johnson's trilogy and the Game of Thrones guys trilogy. So they're working on those movies. But the stuff like the Obi-Wan solo movie, the Boba Fett solo movie that James Mangold's working on, like all of that stuff. Is either put on hold or they're being reworked into something that they think could actually be more successful than Solo was.
Then, in that case, yes, I'm on board with this. Because, like he talks about with Solo, and last time we talked about the Boba Fett movie, I want stuff that's disconnected from the main typical saga things, and having movies that focus solely on those characters, but young, I'm not entirely interested in. I mean, I could be down for a Obi-Wan movie. Like, I think that there is enough there for that to be interesting because we don't know a ton about him.
Right, and there's a lot of demand for Ewan McGregor to return to that role and do a really cool Obi-Wan performance. Like, that would be very cool.
Yeah, but other than that, Ewan McGregor coming back as Obi-Wan is the only thing that I would be excited for, I think, about an Obi-Wan movie.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with them taking a breather to slow down the Star Wars machine for a second and rework them or come up with different ideas about what those spin-off movies could be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there is such a thing as oversaturation. There's too much of a good thing, right? Like, even if all these Star Wars movies are decent, eventually, like, they're not going to make as much money because there's just so many of them, and not everybody's going to see every single one of them. So I feel like with the spin-offs, if they want to keep making these like Obi-Wan movies or Boba Fett movies or what have you, they could just turn them into like streaming exclusives, like stuff for their Disney platform that they're trying to make. And stuff like that, and make the big trilogy movies like Rian Johnson stuff and the Game of Thrones stuff. That could be the theatrical stuff. So you could still have like a Star Wars movie a year if you wanted that. But if you put out like stuff like Solo on their like Netflix-like platform, and it might even be a better place for it. Like, I feel like people might be more forgiving if they're like available for free at their house. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, if I didn't have to put pants on and then pay $15 to see Solo, like, I'd probably be like, yeah, that was a good movie.
Yeah. For Disney's part, though, Disney is denying that they're putting the Star Wars spin-offs on hold. They're not saying that they're doing that. So we'll see what happens. I'm very, very curious. I mean, we haven't really heard much about the Obi-Wan movie since I think they announced a director like over a year ago, right? We talked about that a while back, Stephen Daldry. We don't even know for sure that Ewan McGregor's been back for that. Like, that's not official. So we'll see what happens with all that. I mean, and they did just hire James Mangold for Boba Fett. I don't know if they would switch him over to something else. Like, if they have him, like, who knows? Who knows what could happen with Star Wars? As of right now, Episode 9 is the only thing that's immediately on the horizon. And that's kind of nice. I feel like, when Episode 7 was first announced, like, before Force Awakens even came out, we already knew Rogue One was on the way, Episode 8 and 9 were on the way, and Solo was on the way, right? We had, like, 4 or 5 other Star Wars movies to look forward to.
Right.
Back at, like, a year before Force Awakens even came out. So now we only know about one officially on the horizon. So that's kind of nice. I feel like, that's all we need. Just give me, like, the promise of an eventual Star Wars movie. I don't need, 5 or 6. Like...
I don't need a full slate of Star Wars announcements.
Yeah, it's cluttering up my thoughts. So speaking of Disney, as you may know, Mike, John Lasseter, the head of Walt Disney Animation, one of the co-founders of Pixar, is one of the guys who's been kind of ousted for sexual harassment in the industry. And he stepped down a little while back. There was rumors recently that he was returning to Disney in a limited capacity, and Disney has kind of squashed those rumors. He is sort of still there until 2018, but I think it's more of until the end of this year. But I think it's more of a contract thing than anything else. Like, he sort of has to be there. Like, I don't think he even wants to be there. Like, he wants to be there. But anyway, Disney has announced his replacements for the future for the company. So starting in 2019, there's going to be new heads of Disney Animation and Pixar. So John Lasseter, just for some background, co-founded Pixar, like, was the head of that company for a very long time, and then Disney moved him to be the head of Disney Animation overall. So he headed Pixar and he headed Disney Animation. He basically controlled their entire animation wing. And now he's gone. So they needed replacements, and they actually hired 2. They hired Jennifer Lee, to head Disney Animation, and Pete Docter to head up Pixar. Now, if you don't know those names, Jennifer Lee was the director of Frozen, and Pete Docter has been with Pixar since the beginning. He worked on Monsters, Inc., he directed that movie, he directed Up, and he recently directed Inside Out, so he's seen a lot of success with Pixar as well. And I think these are great choices. Like, I am all on board with these two choices. I mean, I think Disney has seen a lot of success with these two people, so it totally makes sense. And I also feel like the job is so big. Like, John Lasseter was doing both companies, like both Disney Animation and Pixar, and that's a lot. That's a lot for one person to handle. And I feel like that's been part of the reason why the last decade or so of Pixar has been somewhat lackluster compared to the first 15 years of Pixar, right, where they're basically cranking out masterpieces every year. You know, over the last 10 years or so, it's been a little more hit or miss. And I feel like that's because John Lasseter's time has been the time has been divided between the two companies. With Jennifer Lee, I mean, she co-directed Frozen, she co-wrote Wreck-It Ralph, and she co-wrote Zootopia. She's been part of a bunch of their biggest successes. Pete Docter, same deal. So I think this is great news.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about the inner workings of the Disney Animation and Pixar machinations within the studios and stuff. I guess I'm glad John Lasseter's gone, because if he's a harasser person, get out, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but those two people have great pedigree with their filmographies and stuff. You know, some of the best movies that did come out within that decade where things weren't so great. So yeah, I'm on board. I'm excited to see what they're able to do now that people will be able to focus on Pixar solely and then on Disney Animation solely, instead of one guy trying to do both.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to bring that up because that's a pretty big shakeup in the animation industry. And then finally, another big thing that's happened, and it's actually changed, as you pointed out to me over the last couple of hours, but I wrote the story down a week ago. Comcast has put in a bid to buy 20th Century Fox. Now, as you may remember, back in December, Disney put in a bid to buy Fox, and everybody just assumed it was a done deal. Right, I feel like when that happened, it was like, oh well, Disney bought Fox. There it is. Without realizing there's a year or two worth of paperwork and stuff to get through before that actually happens. So I think at that point Disney tried to buy Fox for $51 billion or something like that. It was a lot of money.
Yeah, it was a lot of dollars.
And about 2 weeks ago, Comcast put in a bid to buy 20th Century Fox, upping the number to $65 billion. Which is a lot more dollars than the original bid. But as you pointed out to me 2 or 3 hours ago, Disney has raised that bid again to $71 billion. And I would imagine that number will keep climbing. I feel like this is a good old-fashioned bidding war that we've got going on between these two companies. So my question for you, Mike, is which of these companies would you rather see have Fox? 'Cause I feel like, Fox is going to be sold either way. I'd rather it didn't, because I feel like as far as monopolies go, this isn't great. But one of these companies will likely have Fox, so which one would you rather see?
Oh, man. This is a tough question because, like you said, I think ultimately at the very end of whatever dark timeline we're on, there's one media company. So it doesn't really matter who has what now. But I guess I would want Disney to have it just out of spite for Comcast. They're such a piece of shit, evil company as far as it being an ISP and having a monopoly on the internet that I just don't. I want them to suffer as much as possible. So but if I don't remember I don't know if I have my timeline correct or if I'm just putting on a tinfoil hat. But I think Comcast's bid wasn't announced until after the AT&T Time Warner merger was approved by Congress or whatever.
Okay.
So that was hey, that opened the doors for communication and media companies to just go ahead, make one of them. It's fine. And then Comcast was like, we're going to get Fox. So here we are now.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm sort of with you. Comcast owns Universal, right? That's
I think so. Yeah. It is Comcast. Yeah, Universal and Viacom and
so
all those companies.
I would imagine they would merge their Fox assets into the Universal brand, which
would just have NBC and Fox be one network.
True. Well, I think the Fox network would stay, right? I think that's buying their film and TV production division, but this network would stay because they're not buying the news segment. It would basically.
Oh, I see.
I think Fox would basically be a news channel. That would probably license out shows and stuff so they could air them during prime time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if Comcast bought this, they would own Universal and 20th Century Fox. So I would imagine they would merge their Fox stuff into the Universal branch. Like in terms of blockbuster stuff, Universal doesn't really own any superhero-y things, and they've wanted to get into that game for a very long time. And Fox owns, X-Men and Fantastic Four and all that stuff, so they could, that would be big for them, I think. Right. Universal, their biggest thing right now is either the Fast and Furious franchise.
That's a pretty big thing.
Which is huge. And also the Jurassic Park movies, which we're talking about today.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah. But otherwise, I mean, as far as, I was pretty open about not wanting Disney to buy Fox.
Yeah, that's fair too.
And it just feels like I feel like with Disney, they're not going to hide the fact that it's a monopoly, No. Like Comcast would probably make an attempt to hide the fact that they own everything, right? Disney is just going to lord it out in front of you in their movies. You saw the trailer for Wreck-It Ralph 2?
Yes, I did.
Because my soul died a little bit inside, and I saw people freaking out about it, oh wow, this is so cute, this is so fun. But there's a bit in the trailer where Penelope ends up in this Disney area, and it's Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh is there, and there's a Muppet building, and Iron Man flies away, and stormtroopers are there chasing them, and she lands in a Disney princess room, and it's I don't know, it just feels it's so commercial and so soulless to me. It feels so calculated to be sold to you. And I don't know. It just doesn't. It feels gross. It feels gross to me.
It's so interesting, actually, now that I think about it that way, because the majesty and beauty of Wreck-It Ralph was that all of these companies came together and agreed to let their IPs be used, and it was this beautiful unification of yes, we're going to share our properties. In this one, it's Disney's we own everything now.
Yeah,
this is all ours. And it's oh my god.
Yeah, and it hurts. It hurts a little bit. And even with Wreck-It Ralph 1, it was all nostalgic stuff. It was all 80s video games and stuff like that, right? So it was all
but it was all stuff Disney didn't own.
Yeah, exactly. So they had to license things out or whatever. And even when you watch the Lego movie or something, it's mostly WB stuff. You have the DC superheroes and stuff like that. But also there was the Star Wars stuff in there, right? There was Millennium Falcon swooped in for a second and things like that. So it bums me out a little bit. So I don't necessarily want Comcast to have Fox either, but I feel between the two of them, I feel they'll hide it better.
What's going to happen? Comcast is the kind of company that will secretly own everything, and then somebody's going to walk out on stage and rip a mask off, and that's it. We live in Comcast of America now, and that's the kind of company they are. They'll do some weird backdoor 1984 shit where we don't know about it until it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know which is better. I don't know which one we want. But
would you rather live in Comcast of America or Disney of America? Because I feel it's going to be one of those two.
At least in Disney of America, we get cute animated movies. So
right, and churros.
And turkey legs.
Anyway, so yeah, we'll report back on this as developments happen. But it seems as of right now, there will be a bidding war between the two of them, and it might take years for this to go through. People were as soon as the Disney deal went through and it was talked about in December, people were oh wow, we should see the X-Men and Avengers 4 immediately
reshoot everything.
Yeah, and I was dude, that's not how any of this works. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So that's it for film news today. Let's move on into our discussion.
These are my discussions. Just when I thought I said all I could say, my buddy and I talk about movies we see. These are my discussions. There is so much to see, you and me. So we're gonna talk about movies for our discussions.
All right, it's time for our discussions here in FilmBookCast. Mike, what do you have to discuss with us today?
Today I have quite a few films, actually. But first, I want to mention a movie that you actually told me about, and you might have even talked about way back in the time of the podcast where we recorded the first Jurassic World episode.
Right. The years of podcast past.
Yes. And that movie is 2013's Grand Piano.
See, I've taught you in a way Patrick never could, which means you're ready now.
What?
Us and Cat. Remember it?
What about it?
The unplayable piece, except there's a few people who can play it, am I right? Who can move their fingers that fast and spread them that wide. One of them died last summer. The other is you.
No, I can't play it. It's been 5 years.
Well, here's your chance to put the meltdown behind you. Here's your chance to show all of those who laughed at you, who pitied you, what you're really capable of.
Listen to me. You don't understand. I can't play it.
Why? Because you froze? Because you've never been as terrified as you were that night on stage? Because those last 4 bars have haunted you every day of your life since.
I don't know it by heart.
Which is why I had my assistant put it in your folder. I've planned as well, Tom. I have faith in you.
Yes, I've been banging the drum for this movie for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and this stars Elijah Wood and is directed by Eugenio Meira. And this is a insane movie that, like, here. Okay, so the plot is Elijah Wood is a prodigy concert classical pianist, and he hasn't been on the stage in many years, and he's reuniting, coming back, making his grand reappearance, and he opens the sheet music on the piano to a note that says, play one wrong note and you die. And it's basically Speed and that movie Phone Booth. Remember that movie?
Right.
Colin Farrell. But on a concert piano in front of a grand concert hall. And it's great. I can't believe this movie is good and actually works.
Right?
It doesn't make any sense, but it's amazing.
Yeah, that's so good. It feels like if Brian De Palma had directed like Speed with a piano, like that's
but on a piano.
Yeah, 'cause it's such a De Palma ripoff. Like it's so like it used the split screen and it has like that same kind of the way he utilizes tension. Like that's all about this movie. So yeah, I love Grand Piano.
Yeah, and it's great. I watched that on Shudder, actually, which is a horror movie streaming service. It's available. Also available through Shudder is available through Amazon. So check that out. And then the other movies I want to talk about, just as a whole, is the Mission Impossible with
Sean Connery.
Sean Connery. Mission Impossible franchise. So interesting that we were just talking about De Palma, because De Palma directed the first one.
He did.
And so I rewatched all of them in preparation for why can't I say that name? Mission Impossible Fallout, which comes out in about a month or so.
Yes.
And it had been a while since I had seen those first 3 movies. I feel like Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation, when they came out, kind of redefined the movie, the franchise, and blew up. Met great critical success. I reviewed both of them, I think.
We did
definitely Rogue Nation.
We did Rogue Nation. Ghost Protocol came out way before this podcast started. But Rogue Nation,
a lifetime.
I know. Well, Ghost Protocol was 2011. That might have been before. Yeah. I think that was before you even met. Like that was.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but Rogue Nation was 2015. I think we did a double review of that with Fantastic Four.
I think you're right. Yeah. But yeah, so those movies have been kind of in the cultural, pop culture consciousness a lot more, I think, than the first 3 within the franchise. So I wanted to rewatch those.
Yeah.
And it's such a blast to watch all of, like, just the slow, gradual escalation. Well, I can't even say gradual escalation of these movies, because first one, De Palma, it's a tense political spy espionage thriller with pretty minimal action as far as where the franchise goes.
Right.
Second one, John Woo, action movie. Let's go. Like, Limp Bizkit soundtrack. Let's do this shit.
Fight. Like,
motorcycle duels. Yeah, it's hilarious. It's such a funny juxtaposition of those 2 movies. But, and even that said, like, the second one, probably the weakest of the franchise. But if you're down for John Woo crazy action shit, which I know we both are, like, it's a ton of fun. They fight with motorcycles. Like, how could you not be, like, all about that shit?
Exactly.
The third one, J.J. Abrams. The third one, I feel like, is where it kind of the franchise figures out where it's going, what it's going to be in terms of big action. Because the second one, it's still pretty small scale in terms of what the stunts and stuff they're doing. Third one, Philip Seymour Hoffman might be the best villain, other than...
I think he's 100% the best villain of these.
Yeah, I mean, he's
series.
incredible. And I will give a shout out. I do really appreciate the Mission Impossible franchise for having their villains be really unlikely masculine figures, right? They're not giant hulking Russian dudes or anything like that. They're Philip Seymour Hoffman, and he's terrifying. As well as, oh man, I don't remember the actor's name in Rogue Nation.
Sean Harris?
Yes, Sean Harris is not a very imposing figure or anything like that, but just his menace is wonderful. And in Ghost Protocol is a huge, it's got the Dubai sequence with the fucking climbing the building. Like it,
one of the most unreal things I've ever seen in a theater. Like that's straight up. It's so good.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't need to convince anyone to see Mission Impossible. I don't think, but like it's a interesting exercise to watch all 5 of them in a row.
Right.
Although I didn't watch them all in one day, but just to see the slow the change in the franchise of where it starts as this tense political espionage thriller and where we end up where Tom Cruise is trying to drown himself for 5 minutes or whatever in the fifth one. So definitely, I've watched all of them all at once, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I mean, they're all pretty awesome. I mean, I think it's interesting you mentioned that you don't think the first three had like as much cultural awareness as the last two do, because I feel like the first one especially did when it came out. Because I feel like the scene where Tom Cruise is hanging from a wire in the like off the ceiling and like kind of entering. Like that's iconic. Like that was an iconic scene. It was parodied like everywhere.
And even in the rest of the franchise, they do it in every movie, or at least that pose where you go all the way real near the ground, you have your arms out. Exactly. They do it in every movie, or at least the first four. Yeah,
exactly. But even like before the fourth and fifth one came out, like the theme song was like iconic. Everybody knew the theme song to Mission Impossible and stuff like that. Like they were big movies for sure. Yeah. I've never watched the TV show that they were based on. And I feel like at this point, I don't even want to. Like,
yeah, I can just picture it being like this really slow, prodding, like 1970s spy drama.
Yeah, but I know in the first one, like at least a couple of characters are based on characters from the show. Like I think Jon Voight's character is a character from the TV show, and I remember reading that people were very upset because in the movie Jon Voight's character ends up being the villain. Right. Like he was like one of the heroes of the show, and people were like very upset about that at the time.
Wow, that's pretty funny. Yeah, and I love too. They do have the gadgets are always a big thing in the movies, and like I love the gadget, like the big, like life-saving gadget in the first one is like a stick of gum. Right. it's like dynamite, which is hilarious, and is one of the. It's like so weird to talk about because I think you're right. The first movie especially was this big cultural, pop culture thing. But there's that one line at the very end when Tom Cruise is on the helicopter in the tunnel, which I will admit is the big crazy action.
Yeah, so cool.
Set piece, amazing. And he takes the piece of gum and he yells red light, green light, and then sticks it on the door, like on the windshield of the helicopter.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, him yelling red light, green light has been a thing that, like, one of those movie lines that stuck with me forever. I don't know why. It's so weird. It's so weird that it has.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's cool. Mission Impossible. People should watch all of them.
Definitely. What would you say your favorite one is, Mike?
That's tough. I think Rogue Nation is my favorite overall. I think that's definitely my favorite one. It's the most fun. Rebecca Ferguson as Ilsa Faust, like who's the dopest character ever.
She's great.
Yeah. That's a huge the opera house sequence in there reminded me of Grand Piano.
Yes.
Look at that. Yeah, I think Rogue Nation's the most fun and my favorite one, but I think Jurassic Park, I almost said. Mission Impossible 3 feels like the turning point in the franchise as a whole. So, like, I think that one might be more important in some weird way.
Okay.
But Rogue Nation, that's my favorite one. I have the most fun watching that.
Okay, interesting. My favorite is Ghost Protocol. And it's been a little while since I've watched them all, so I do want to rewatch them again. But I feel like Ghost Protocol I feel like that's the one where, like, I was always really enjoying the franchise, but Ghost Protocol just felt perfect from, like, moment one. I loved Brad Bird's direction of that movie, because that was, like, his first live-action movie. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. But I feel like, I remember watching Ghost Protocol and thinking it felt like I was watching a live-action version of The Incredibles, but with, like, Tom Cruise, and it was great. I was so on board with that. Hey, speaking of The Incredibles, Mike, I got a couple of discussions for today, including a little movie directed by Brad Bird that is the sequel to The Incredibles. Captain Segway strikes again. It is Incredibles 2.
Let me ask you something. What is the main reason you were all forced underground?
Ignorance.
Perception. Take today, for example, with the Underminer. Difficult situation. You were faced with a lot of hard decisions.
Oh, tell me about it.
I can't. Because I didn't see it. Neither did anyone else. So, when you fight bad guys like today, people don't see the fight or what led up to it. They see what politicians tell them to see. They see destruction, and they see you. So, if we want to change people's perceptions about superheroes, we need you to share your perceptions with the world.
Now, The Incredibles, obviously Pixar movie from 2004, Brad Bird directed, and it was a childhood favorite of mine. I mean, that came out when I was like 11 years old. I was the perfect age for The Incredibles, and that movie was huge when that came out. That was like right in the middle. Like we were talking about Pixar before. That was right in the middle of like a hot streak for Pixar. Right, they had like Monsters Inc. and Finding Nemo and The Incredibles. Right, and like I think Cars was next, which was Cars, but like then they had like Ratatouille and WALL-E and Up and Toy Story 3. Like it was a nuts. Like as far as like a batting average goes for that decade, like it's very difficult to beat Pixar. So The Incredibles was a childhood favorite of mine, and it was also the only Pixar movie I ever actively wanted a sequel to.
Really?
You know? Yeah, I mean, because they would always, like, you know, Toy Story 3 came out, and like, I was excited about that, obviously, because I was a huge fan of Toy Story 1 and 2. But then, like, you know, over the course of this last decade, right, they had Finding Dory, and they had Monsters University, and they did Cars 2 and 3. And it's like those are all, like, sequels, and, like, some of them turned out good, some of them didn't. But, like, it was always like, where's the Incredibles sequel? Where is the one that was actually built for sequels? It's a superhero movie. They're like designed for sequels. You know what I mean?
Right. That's a good point.
And so The Incredibles was one that I absolutely loved as a kid. Like, for a while, it was my favorite Pixar movie. I'm not sure if it still is. I rewatched it recently, and I still like it a lot. I'm not sure if it's still my favorite, but it's still really, really great. So The Incredibles 2, I was very excited about because it's the only Pixar movie that I actually really wanted a sequel to. And it does not disappoint. It's a total blast. I think it is a lot more scattershot than the original. I think the original has a much more clearer focus on what it's about. But I think this one's so much fun. I mean, it really emphasizes Elastigirl, Holly Hunter's character. And I love that because I love Holly Hunter and I love Elastigirl. And so she is a highlight of this movie for sure. And Brad Bird is just very clearly enjoying playing around in this sandbox again. You know, he created this movie 14 years ago, and, you know, he's directed some movies since, but this is the one that always felt like the most creative and the most vibrant. You know, the world of The Incredibles, I think, is so fascinating because it's like 1960s kind of retro futurism. So it doesn't really take place in present day. It doesn't really take place in the 60s. It kind of has like that sliding timeline Archer kind of thing going on where it's like, you know, you don't really know when this takes place. I remember when The Incredibles came out, actually, that was 2004, and it kind of takes place in like that retro futurist 60s thing. But there's like iPads and stuff, but it was before iPads had even come out. Like, it was like,
Right.
So I remember when the iPad was first like unveiled by Apple, I was like, is that the thing from The Incredibles?
They stole that idea.
But anyway, yeah, there's some fantastic action sequences in this movie. I think the way that Bird plays around with the combination of superpowers is so much fun. I think he gets that more right than any X-Men movie does, or like a lot of the Marvel movies do, even. Like, just the way like the powers like combine and work together and stuff like that. There's a lot more heroes in this movie. And like I said, I think the focus is a little less clear than the original movie, and I think the villain is a little bit weaker because like Syndrome is a very memorable villain in the first movie, and the villain here I think is good and serves as a really good counterpoint to Elastigirl, but it just doesn't have the same impact for me as that one does. But I really loved all the superhero stuff. I really loved all the family stuff. Basically, the plot of this movie is that Elastigirl is kind of the model for like superhero rights and like trying to bring back superheroes because they're illegal in this world, while Mr. Incredible has to stay at home and take care of the kids. And it's a lot of fun watching Mr. Incredible deal with that stuff, and it's a lot of fun watching Elastigirl do all that stuff. So I definitely recommend Incredibles 2. I think it's a blast. I think anybody who likes the first one will probably like this one. And then I've got a couple other things I want to talk about, Mike. The first is Hotel Artemis.
Hey, are we safe in here from doomsday? I mean, are these walls fortified with anything? Those people are animals.
I just want clean water.
Well, then they can get a job and pay for water like the rest of us. You don't like that? You one of those bleeding heart types? Well, hey, cops kill poor people kill cops. That's the circle of life. Hakuna Matata.
Easy for the robots swimming in your Alta Canal. Take one in an hour, and then after that you can go.
All right. Hey, my TV's broken. I want to watch the riots.
There's an old one in the game room. It's hardwired. It should be working.
Hey, hang on. You want me to go out there with the criminals?
Hakuna Matata, buddy.
You saw the trailer for this a few weeks back, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I also saw the trailer a few weeks back, and that was the first time I'd ever heard anything about this movie. But this is written and directed by Drew Pearce, who co-wrote Iron Man 3 with Shane Black. And I got hyped about this from the trailer. The trailer looked awesome, right? So basically, it takes the central concept of John Wick with the Hitman Hotel,
Right.
and it throws in an amazing cast. Sterling K. Brown, Jodie Foster, Dave Bautista, Sophia Boutella, Jeff Goldblum, Jenny Slate, Charlie Day is in this movie. And it's just nuts. Like, it's an absolutely bonkers cast that is in this movie. And then I was just left kind of disappointed. Kind of does nothing with all that. Yeah, it was a bummer for sure. I mean, I didn't have a bad time. Like, I had a reasonably okay time, I feel. I feel like it's all right. There's enough solid ideas there. It just doesn't feel like it does anything. There's a couple decent moments, but I don't think it's as much of an action movie as you would want it to be. It's more of like a melodrama set in this world. But you know, Sophia Boutella, though, she's awesome. She's so good. She has one great action sequence, which is really cool. But overall, just kind of a letdown. Like, I was not as into Hotel Artemis as I was hoping I would be. I think if you're looking for a John Wick ripoff this summer, go see Upgrade. It's much better. Anyway, yeah, so I've got a couple more things here. The first is Arrested Development Season 5, Part 1.
What was it that brought everyone back together in town this time?
But this new beginning is different.
I don't like it.
Because the Bluths are finally getting the award they think they deserve.
Family of the Month.
Yeah, are you motherfucking Family of the motherfucking year?
Who'd give us that?
We're giving it to ourselves.
Right. Still doesn't seem like we'd get the votes.
So a little while back, a couple episodes ago, I talked about Arrested Development Fateful Consequences, which was the re-edit of Season 4 of Arrested Development. And now Season 5 has come out, or the first half of it. The second half is going to come out later this year. But I want to talk about this because, I'm a huge Arrested Development fan. I finished the season. And I think this first half of Season 5 sees Arrested Development kind of overcorrecting the problems that people had with Season 4. So a lot of people did not like Season 4. And I get why it's I love it, but I get why people don't like it. It's a much different show than the original series of Arrested Development. And this one kind of overcorrects that and tries to make it more like the original show. And the result is that it is probably the least ambitious the show has ever been. It feels like it's kind of just, kind of walking around the bases, so to speak. Luckily, it's still super funny. Like, it's a very, very funny show. And it is nice just having this cast interacting with each other more. That was the big complaint about Season 4 was that, every episode was based on one character, so it was very difficult to see, sometimes you would see Michael interact with George Michael or something, but then they wouldn't see each other for episodes and episodes at a time. So now most of the cast is back and together in most of the show. Although Portia de Rossi, who plays Lindsay, very clearly not available for. There's a lot of green screen going on, and it's very noticeable. Yeah, it's not great. But even so, the season was super funny. I'm still super invested in the plot. There's a lot of great running gags and stuff like that. Some great performances going on, and it's still, I think, one of the cleverest shows out there. So I think it's worth checking out. And Part 2 comes out later this year, so I'll be talking about it then. But and then I finally wanted to bring up another show, which I haven't really talked about as it's been airing on TV. Because you haven't been watching it, and I was a little surprised about that.
Don't put that on me.
Well, no, it's not that I wasn't going to bring it up on the podcast anyway or not. But anyway, Westworld Season 2.
Look at this world. This beautiful world. We built this world together. A world where dreams come true. Where you can be free. But this world is a lie.
Has finished airing. The finale was this past Sunday. And so you haven't watched any of the season, right, Mike?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so I won't go too deep into Westworld Season 2. I will say, as a season overall, I was kind of disappointed with the show. Which really doubled down on the mystery box aspect of the show to the point where it seemed deliberately confusing just for confusion's sake.
Everybody's favorite thing.
Yeah, so, I mean, that said, I really liked the finale, and I thought the finale was very good. I'm pretty sure it made no sense, but, I was kind of into it in, a Matrix Reloaded kind of way.
Like a Twin Peaks The Return kind of way.
No, because Twin Peaks The Return... Here's the thing, and I thought about this. I actually really did think about this, because, I was, wondering why I wasn't clicking with Westworld. I wasn't understanding anything on the show for long periods of time, but at the same time, I was like, Twin Peaks was a show where, it's built on confusion and, unsettling you and stuff like that. But I feel like with Twin Peaks, it's still telling a relatively straightforward narrative. It's just doing it in a surrealist kind of way, whereas Westworld... the big reveal at the end of Season 1, spoilers for Season 1 of Westworld, is that, there's two different timelines going on at the same time on the show. So you didn't actually, the entire season, you were watching two separate timelines, and they kind of converged towards the end. So now you're watching it, and it's still doing the timelines thing. It's still doing separate timelines, and it's probably even more of that. It's 2, 3, 4 timelines, different things happening at different times. And it just feels like I'm spending more energy unpacking when things are happening in relation to each other than I am actually just experiencing the story. And for that reason, I feel like nothing makes sense on this show. I don't want to read 20 articles to find out how how everything kind of pieces into place. You know what I'm saying?
I don't want to wait for the AV Club to tell me what I should think about this
Exactly.
season.
It just feels like it's a lot of work. watching Westworld Season 2. And there are highlights for sure. There are definitely moments that really worked for me. There's it kind of expanded the world of the show. I was very excited for Shogun World at the end of Season 1, and I was kind of let down by where the show went with that. But there's some really great individual episodes. Like, every once in a while, the show will take a break from the overall narrative and just kind of focus on one character and just delve into their backstory, and that was interesting. But you know what? There was, around the time the show started, back in Season 1, I would joke with people about where I thought the show was headed. Mm-hmm. Like, I would say this as a joke, and I won't say what I said because I don't want to spoil it for you. But I would say this as a joke, like, not thinking it would actually happen. And then at the end of Westworld Season 2, I'm like, wait, this is actually happening. Like, this is
did that thing happen? Is that
like
for real?
Yeah, like the thing that I've been joking about forever is actually coming to pass, and I'm like, this is okay. Interesting. But yeah, I mean, the show is still, like, beautiful looking. It still looks awesome, and, like, there's still great performances all around. Jeffrey Wright's great. I really love Shannon Woodward on the show. Elsie, like the kind of sarcastic tech worker there. She's great. And Evan Rachel Wood is really good, and James Marsden and all that. But I don't know. I feel like...
wait, okay, hold on. Never mind.
What?
All those characters died in Season 1?
No, they didn't all die in Season 1. None of those characters died in Season 1.
You sure? I don't know. How do timelines?
You know what? One of the confusing things about the show is that a lot of these characters are robots, and so, they'll die, but they'll come back like in an episode later.
They'll just come right back. That's a good point.
But anyway, Westworld Season 2. I think if you enjoyed the first season, I think it might be worth watching. I think you'll probably watch it regardless of what I say.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth it to get to the finale, which, again, does have, like, very heavy Matrix Reloaded vibes, but in a good way, kind of like... I was kind of
97 Hugo Weavings.
And Evan Rachel Wood is fighting all of them. It's great. Also, you should know, there was a post-credit scene on the finale.
What?
Yeah, and it's like a long one. It's like 5 minutes. It should have just been in the episode.
It should have just been before the credits.
It should have just been before the credits, but it's not. It's after the credits. So just be aware of that when you're watching the show.
Okay.
But anyway, that is Westworld Season 2. Overall, I think kind of a disappointment just because I had no idea what the fuck was going on. But at the same time, I was relatively engaged by the show, even though I was confused. So there was that. Take that for what you will. And now we should move on, Mike. Let's go into our featured review of Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
How many can you save?
11 species. Blue is the last of her kind.
You'll never capture her.
We thought you might know someone who could help.
A rescue op? What could go wrong? Hey, Blue. You know me. Come with me. You know you can't stay here.
Pack your men up right now.
It was all a lie!
The man who proved raptors can follow orders. You never thought how many millions a trained predator might be worth?
They're gonna sell them.
Not Blue. They need it for something else.
What is that thing? They made it.
This is the most dangerous creature that ever walked the earth.
All right, that was from the trailer for Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, the new movie written by Colin Trevorrow and Derek Connolly and directed by J.A. Bayona. It stars Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, Rafe Spall, Justice Smith, Daniela Pineda, James Cronwell, Toby Jones, Ted Levine, B.D. Wong, Isabella Sermon, Geraldine Chaplin, and Jeff Goldblum, among others. Or starring Jeff Goldblum seems like a stretch. Featuring Jeff Goldblum.
And also with Jeff
Goldblum. And the IMDb plot synopsis for Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom reads: When the island's dormant volcano begins roaring to life, Owen and Claire mount a campaign to rescue the remaining dinosaurs from this extinction-level event. So, Mike, let's backtrack a little bit. Explain our history with the Jurassic Park franchise, just in case people didn't listen to episode 10 back in the day. So I will just give mine. To be clear, Jurassic Park, masterpiece. Love that movie. The Lost World, it's pretty lackluster, but it's got some cool action sequences. I know you're a fan of Lost World.
Yes.
But I think it's pretty lackluster with some fun stuff. Jurassic Park 3, I think, is a kind of fun, schlocky B-movie. And I would argue is probably the best of the Jurassic Park sequels. That is the hill that I'm going to die on in this, in this podcast.
All right. It's your funeral, kid.
And Jurassic World in 2015 is a semi-entertaining corporate cash grab that feels more like a cash grab because it's very upfront and self-aware about being a cash grab, and that makes it feel more soulless to me.
It's the Disney of cash grabs.
It's the Disney of cash grabs, which I guess is an oxymoron. But anyway, let's talk about you. What's your take about the Jurassic Park franchise, Mike?
Yeah, so I think I've mentioned it a couple times that Jurassic Park 1 is one of those foundational childhood movies for me.
Right, and for me. I feel like for most people of our generation it is, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was well, I say that because it was the movie, or it was one of the movies that the people that used to babysit me when I was a little kid had on VHS that I was allowed to watch. So we would watch that movie like every day, all the time. So yeah, it's a foundational movie for me. Jurassic Park: The Lost World was the first PG-13 movie I saw in theaters, so that's the reason I enjoy it. I totally recognize it's not a great movie, but I have a ton of nostalgia, and it's an important place in movie history, for my movie history.
Okay.
So that's why I love it. And then kind of from there, like, yeah, there's other movies, I guess. No, I do like Jurassic Park 3. I think you have turned me around on enjoying it as a B monster movie.
Okay, to be fair, I have not watched it in full since it was in theaters. So and that was, I actually own it on Blu-ray and I've never watched it.
You just never even opened it.
Well, because I got the Jurassic Park trilogy Blu-ray set.
Okay.
Mostly because I just wanted the first one on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I totally understand.
So I think I watched The Lost World on Blu-ray once, and I've never watched my Jurassic Park 3 Blu-ray.
That's amazing.
Partially because I want to preserve that memory in amber. Right?
Hey.
Jurassic Park joke. Of like Jurassic Park 3 being a kind of fun movie. But I have not watched it since it was in theaters, so it's been like 17 years since I've actually seen it.
Jesus. Yeah, but I agree with you. I have watched it recently, and
really?
it does fit that. Within the last year or two.
Okay.
It does fit that schlocky B monster movie thing. So it is fun on that level. Jurassic World, I fucking hate. I remember in the episode trying to tear that movie apart, just like the lawyer in the first one. Oh no, sorry. Does he get? Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Just like the woman who is just babysitting the kids in Jurassic World.
In Jurassic World, gets torn apart by the pterodactyls. Exactly.
And then eaten by a giant fucking whale dinosaur. Or whatever.
Yes. I feel like I haven't really watched it since we saw it in theaters.
Neither have I. I haven't seen it since theaters.
And I think at this point I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt to be some kind of meta commentary on big tentpole studio cash grab sequels, but I still think the movie's not smart enough to get all that credit. I'm willing to give it some of it, but it's not smart enough to be fully the critique of itself that people think it is.
Right.
So that's kind of my thought process going into Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Right. So let's start with you, man. What are your overall thoughts on Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom? Do you think this was a worthy follow-up to Jurassic World, this movie you hate?
Yes, in that I don't like it.
Okay, do you think this is a better or worse movie than Jurassic World?
Oh man, that's tough. That's tough to say. I don't know if it's better or worse. I think this is the goofy dumbness of Jurassic World that I really disliked, but still peppered with some action sequences that I thought were fun. Were fun enough for me to not actually hate this movie, but to just be like, I have seen this. Like, I have come across just totally neutral on this movie.
So you're neutral. You dislike it, but you're.
I guess just left of neutral. On the side of I don't like this movie, but I don't hate it with a way that I hated Jurassic World.
Okay, so it's better than Jurassic World.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's the long answer to that question. I had to parse that out with you, Mike. Thanks for coming along that walk with me.
You dislike it, but you don't hate it with the passion of 1,000 suns like you do Jurassic World.
Yes.
So now we've got Fallen Kingdom, this fifth movie. I did have a little bit of hope for this one going in. I mean, the J.A. Bayona, I think, is a better director than Colin Trevorrow. He directed The Orphanage, which was a Spanish-language horror movie from 2007 with Guillermo del Toro produced that one, I think. And
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a really good horror movie. It's a good movie. And the trailers made it kind of look like a riff on The Lost World, right? And, to that end, I was like, that's kind of an interesting direction to go. I guess, I mean, I don't need it to repeat all the sequels and stuff like that, but, like, if it's going to do something different, I feel like, everybody copies Jurassic Park. I don't need my Jurassic Park movies to copy the original Jurassic Park. If they're going to copy The Lost World, that's a little more interesting. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that. Anyway, it is my belief that Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is a very dumb movie filled with very dumb characters doing very dumb things. I don't know if I like it more than Jurassic World or not. I feel like I think this is a better directed movie, and I think it's got some better action sequences than Jurassic World does. I think it definitely looks better. There are actually images in this movie that I think are actually kind of beautiful, but I feel like Jurassic World was more complete on a thematic level in terms of what it was saying with the meta commentary on blockbusters and stuff. Right. And I don't think Jurassic World is a very good movie. We talked about it in our episode many years ago, and yeah, we both kind of came down. I mean, you were a lot harsher on it than I was. I thought it was like a relatively fun time, but even acknowledging that it was super dumb. This one is also super dumb, so it has that going for it too. But yeah, I think part of the issue just lies in the fact that this sort of feels like one movie ends and another one begins like halfway through. Yeah,
I agree, and it's so weird that you say that because like that also happens in The Lost World, where we have this whole other segment. The whole third act of the movie, we're back on the mainland. We're back in the U.S.
Right, but The Lost World goes nuts with it, though. That's the thing. Yeah. It's a big like citywide attack on the mainland.
T-Rex chase. Yeah,
yeah. And this one, I mean, there's a lot more dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. But they're all in one location. They're only attacking like a small group of people. So it's like, and we'll talk about that in spoilers and stuff. But it does feel a little bit underwhelming compared to The Lost World, I think. Yeah. Even though I think it does expand the world in an interesting way, and we'll talk about that later on. But yeah, I do think this is better directed. It looks better. But I think the idea of having to go back to the island and save the dinosaurs from a volcano, like it's a dumb idea. I don't think it's a good one. Because like, why would they build the island? Why would they build the park on an island with a volcano on it in the first place?
And they try so hard to explain that too.
Right. Well, it was like a dormant volcano, but like eventually, like it's going to not be dormant anymore, right? That's how volcanoes work. But I think it's an idea like it's a dumb one, but I think it's also a dumb idea that could have sustained an entire movie by itself if they wanted it to. And so it feels kind of truncated because they're doing that for like half the movie, and then the other half is this mansion sequence. Also, I mean, let's talk about Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard in this movie. Did you feel that they were consistent with their characters from Jurassic World? Do you even remember what their characters were like in Jurassic World?
All I remember is the worst last line of a movie in movie history is "We better stay together for survival."
See, I didn't even remember that. So
that's like ingrained in my brain. But I don't remember. That's all I remember is that like they got together at the end, and she wears heels. That's it. That's all I got.
Okay. Well, I barely remember Jurassic World, so I might be wrong about this, but I feel like Claire and Owen are essentially the opposite of how we remember them from the first movie when this one begins. Because in Jurassic World, right, Claire was the busy businesswoman who only cares about business, right? Yeah. And she doesn't care about dinosaurs, right? That's her whole thing. Like she's like, it's these fucking dinosaurs, whatever. I got to take care of these, whatever. Yeah. And Owen was the guy who cared about dinosaurs and had like a special bond with them. And this movie starts with Claire as the head of a dinosaur rights organization, leading the mission to go back to the island. And Owen is the reluctant guy who thinks they should let them go extinct. And the movie gives you nothing as to why they've changed so drastically,
Yeah, that's a really good point. They knew the first one is so forgettable that no one is going to notice that.
Well, I did.
Well, yeah, because you're a better person than most, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, with the events that happened at the end of Jurassic World, right, like with the dinosaurs attacking the island and stuff, I would get why Owen would change, right? Like, I would get why he would be like, yeah, we shouldn't go back, we should let them go extinct. But then why would Bryce Dallas Howard change in the opposite way? Why would she become, a dinosaur rights activist,
Could it just be out of guilt? Because they do talk about, well, that's not a spoiler, I guess, that she sort of authorized well, it's a spoiler for the first one, authorized the creation of the Indominus Rex, so, like, maybe out of some kind of guilt, she feels like she has to do some good somehow? I don't know.
Maybe. Okay.
But that's way too much credit than this movie deserves, should ever get.
Yeah, I mean, and performance-wise, what did you think of Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard? Like, were you okay with them? Like,
I mean, I guess they're just like here. They look pretty. That's all they have to do.
Right. I mean, I think they're both fine. Bryce Dallas Howard's fine. I feel like Chris Pratt, he's very good at playing characters who think they're badass but aren't.
Yes.
When he's asked to play like an actual badass, I find him kind of lacking. Like, I think he's just like serviceable, like in this movie. You know, when he's playing like a Star-Lord or something, or like Burt Macklin FBI, he's amazing. He's so good. He's like, you know, unreal how good he is. And in this, it's just like, I'm gonna throw out a couple of quips, and that's my thing. And it's like,
there are a few moments where like he expresses disbelief that he was able to do the thing he just did, and those moments are great. And there's one that I can think of, actually. But, yeah.
Is it if it's the moment that I'm thinking of, does it have to do with lava coming towards him?
No.
Okay, different moment. Okay, interesting. We'll talk about it in spoilers.
Otherwise, I agree with you, though, where he's just, like, the badass that can do the things he thinks he can. It's just like, all right, I guess you're a big hunk. That's all. That's all you need.
Yeah, there was a tweet going around the other day, or like a week or two ago, where somebody had tweeted out, like, can anybody name the main character that Chris Pratt plays in Jurassic World, the star of this like massive, like, you know, record-breaking movie? Can anybody name this main character? And a lot of people couldn't do it. And I quote tweeted it with like a Mystery Science Theater reference, and you retweeted it right away because I'm proud of you.
You're right.
But it was like chunk man meat and like big Large huge and stuff like. Yeah. And that's basically what he's playing. He's playing that kind of character.
Yeah, he's blast hard cheese.
Exactly.
Like, that's all.
But I feel like Jurassic Park is just a movie that, like, it seems like sequels aren't the worst idea on paper, but then when you actually execute them, it's like what can you possibly do with sequels to Jurassic Park? You know what I mean? Because every time, all you can do is go back to the island, right? That's like it's becoming increasingly harder to find reasons for them to go back to the island because it's more and more ridiculous each time. So the second one comes out, and it's like Jeff Goldblum has to go back to the island to save his wife, and it's like, all right, I guess that's fine. And then, like, when Jurassic Park 3 comes out, it's like Sam Neill has to go back to the island to save
to the B site.
Yeah. And it's like, all right, I guess that's fine, too. And then Jurassic World happens, and it's like, we built the park even though the events of Jurassic Parks 1, 2, and 3 happened, and we know it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, why'd you do that? And then it's a bad idea, and everything goes haywire. And then in this one, they have to go back to the island, not to save a person, but to save the dinosaurs. And yeah, I mean, there are some good sequences. I think actually I think it's the opening sequence where the T-Rex and like the guy. That's pretty fun. That's a pretty cool sequence where it's like the lightning flashes and you see the T-Rex like in the background of the shot.
Yeah,
kind of thing. I hated the guy. I was excited for him to die. He was like the way he turned around. I was like, I can't hear you. What are you guys saying? Like, and I think it's the problem with every Jurassic Park sequel, but specifically this movie. Every character is the dumbest possible version of themselves.
Oh my god,
that they can be. So there's one moment towards the end with Ted Levine's character where my entire theater groaned, like just straight up, like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And I love Ted Levine in this movie. Otherwise, like I thought he was actually really great. Like he's the army dude who's in charge of like the rescue mission for the dinosaurs and stuff, and he was great. Also, Toby Jones is giving a fun performance too. I thought he was pretty entertaining.
Mm-hmm. It's no Pete Postlewaite though, who is that character in Lost World.
Yes. True. Also, I want to reject the notion that we need to create new dinosaurs for this series. Because, Jurassic World had the Indominus Rex, right? It was this big, like, made-up dinosaur that the people engineered. And that kind of served a narrative purpose, right? Because it was sort of their metatextual blockbuster commentary. And this one has the Indoraptor, right? Which is, like, basically the same thing, but smaller. And, you know, dinosaurs are already, like, objectively awesome. And there's no reason for them to create new dinosaurs. Just have existing... There's... like probably hundreds of existing dinosaurs that are awesome that haven't been in Jurassic Park movies yet. You could use them, straight up. You could put those dinosaurs in there, and it would be fine. Like, because nothing they create is going to be as cool as a T-Rex. It's just not going to happen
ever.
You know,
except for Blue.
Except for our beloved Blue.
I can't wait for the Blue spinoff.
Oh my god, you know it's going to happen too.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I feel like because the T-Rex. it's so cool because it actually existed, right? Like,
Right.
Like we know for a fact the T-Rex was a real thing that happened in the world, and that's what makes it awesome, you know. And it's this crazy, cool, gigantic dragon-like creature, like that. It actually existed. It's awesome. But the Indominus Rex, just some shit that, like, you know, B.D. Wong created in a lab, and it's like, that's not as cool anymore. That's not fun.
Especially when it serves as a allegory for some shit a studio executive cooked up in a like a studio somewhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're directly addressing the thing that is the movie. And you know, it's weird. One of the most heartbreaking things for young Mike as a child, just when we're talking about how dope dinosaurs are, is when you learn that velociraptors actually were only like 3 feet tall and covered in feathers. That's sad. That's sad, Mike.
It's a bummer, yeah, for sure. But they didn't know that at the time. So
true. But we do now, but we have Blue, so it's all fine. You know what I want? Have you ever seen the re-edit of the first episode of Archer, where it's just the same exact thing except Archer's a velociraptor?
No.
That's a real thing. I have the first season on DVD. There's the pilot, there's a re-edit. It's the exact same thing except Archer's a velociraptor.
Why? What is that?
Because those guys are weird that make Archer. I don't know. But I want that movie with Blue. I just want like a regular...
You want a secret agent movie where Blue is in a suit.
I just want like no, he's not even in a suit. He's just like a regular velociraptor. And the Archer thing. But I just want like a family melodrama just like starring Blue.
Yeah, there was an episode of The Critic a while back. That's like mid-90s, but they're reviewing like the new Jurassic Park movie, and it cuts to like a scene from the movie, and it's a velociraptor attacking them, and the raptor locks itself in a door, and Jeff Goldblum's like, you can't lock a raptor in a closet, they're too smart. And then there's like a key in the keyhole of the door, and the raptor's like trying to wiggle it out, like, and then it like puts a piece of paper under the door, knocks the key out, like knocks the key onto the paper, pulls it back in, and like jiggles the handle and unlocks the door, and then it's like
you can't that has to be a joke.
I mean, it's a cartoon, but it's like, but it like screams. Then like you may get us, but you'll never escape the island. And then the raptor like pulls up a pipe, and it's like, oh, I beg to differ. you see, the other raptors and I have constructed a crude suspension bridge, and that's Blue. That's Blue in this movie.
Oh my god! Holy shit! Yeah,
that's what I thought of every time I saw Blue in this movie.
You may have us, but you'll never get off the island.
I beg to differ, for you see, the other raptors and I have constructed a crude suspension bridge to Venezuela. Once there, I shall lie low and assume odd jobs under the name Mr. Pilkington, but perhaps I've said too much.
So what I was talking about before, like, I think there's a lot of inherent problems with creating a sequel to Jurassic Park.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And I think part of that is that, you know, they've never managed to capture the wonder that the original has. You know, Spielberg is obviously a guy who's big on cinematic wonder, and the way Spielberg captures that is, so Matt Singer of Screen Crush wrote a great article explaining what the problem with these movies are. And it's because in the first movie, nobody except for Hammond knows they're about to see dinosaurs, right? It's this huge surprise to them. And when they see them, like, Spielberg captures that like it's the greatest miracle anybody has ever seen in the history of the world. I think about the way Laura Dern stands up and stares at the dinosaurs all the time. Like, I think about that moment.
To pull his sunglasses off. Yeah.
Yes. It's crazy how much he sees that. And even after like all the T-Rex stuff, right, there's still moments of wonder throughout the movie, right? You have that moment where Sam Neill and the kids are in the tree and they see the brontosaurus and stuff like that, and they're like kind of like talking, like kind of like petting it and stuff like that. And it's like there's wonder throughout Jurassic Park, and I feel like none of the sequels have even come close to capturing anything like that. There's attempts at it sometimes. I feel like this movie attempts it maybe twice. Right? There's a moment when they first get to the island where they see the Brachiosauruses walking, and like the girl character is like, "Oh wow, I've never seen them like up close before," and it's like okay, cool, but like, you know, they exist. Like, that's the thing. Like, I feel like when you have these characters who know that dinosaurs exist already, it's not as exciting because they're already prepared to see dinosaurs. When Sam Neill and Laura Dern and Jeff Goldblum see dinosaurs for the first time, it's an earth-shattering event. Like, they've never seen anything like this before.
Fallen Kingdom sort of like expressly calls itself out that way too. There's a segment or sequence or whatever when everyone's name just left my brain. Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt are in the like holding cell, sort of. I don't want to give away too much stuff.
Yeah.
But she says like, "Oh, you remember the first time you saw them? Like, it was a miracle, and now they're just like a thing." Or like she says like some poorly written line about that.
Right, and Jurassic World did that too, right? That was the whole reason the Indominus Rex existed, because it was positing like, oh, people are bored of dinosaurs now; they're used to them and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you can't make the same critique twice and then just keep trying to cash in on it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, again, there are some really good action sequences. I think the escape from the lava on the island is fun. There's cool stuff with the Indoraptor in the mansion. I like the opening bit with the T-Rex. And I will say, I think the movie does feel less beholden to the original movie than Jurassic World does, which I liked about it. This movie I felt took some risks, and I don't think they worked out, but
they tried.
I'm glad it tried something different. It wasn't just resting on its laurels like Jurassic World did. Like with Jurassic World, like it was, there was a bit where the two kids like found the old park and stuff like that, and they found the old Jeeps and stuff. And Jake Johnson's character was like, "Oh man, the old park is so cool. Love Jurassic Park. That's a great thing." And and like even there's like visual references where like Bryce Dallas Howard has like the flare and stuff like that. Like there's stuff in that movie that like is just meant to directly call back Jurassic Park without any real context. Whereas this one doesn't really have that. I think there are still some callbacks throughout, but like it's not as prevalent, I guess. And when it doesn't feel as forced, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's the key, because I feel like there's at least 3 I can think of, but they feel a little more natural except for one.
Is the very end one?
No.
Really? I feel like I keep thinking about things that I think...
okay, so there's 4. I didn't think about that one.
We're going to get to spoilers in a minute, but before we do, I want to get your thoughts on the ending. Like, without going into what it is, are you pro or con where this movie ends? Because this movie ends on a note that I was not expecting it to end on. And honestly, I might have been on board with it if it were not executed in the most infuriating way possible.
Well, I think we might have to dive into that a bit more, because I'm not entirely sure what makes you grumpy about it. Not that I'm on board for it. It might be like I missed something, is what I'm trying to say. Because I think the ending of it is like kind of lame. I think the first one, like the original Jurassic Park, isn't that preachy by any means.
Sure, I'm not talking about preachiness. I feel like, the way this movie ends, I feel like is the only possible way this movie could end for there to be more movies. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean.
But there's no way this franchise could have continued unless they ended it this way.
That part of the ending.
Which ending are you talking about? Okay, we should talk about spoilers.
No. I didn't go far enough into the movie to think about what you were talking about the ending of. So I was thinking of like the last 2 minutes or something. I was like, I don't really know what you're talking about. Yeah, no, I agree with you, actually. That, we need to cash in on all these dino dollars, so, end this way.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about... It seems like we're getting dangerous close to spoiler territory now, so let's do that. Let's get into spoilers for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, starting right now.
Stop it, both of you! You're spoiling it! You're spoiling everything!
All right, spoilers for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, starting right now. Okay, so that ending... Dinosaurs are loose all over the world now.
Right.
This is it. We have turned this franchise into fucking Planet of the Apes, but with dinosaurs.
Oh my god.
This is the end game. Okay, so I kind of like the idea behind this ending. Like, it's a ballsy ending, I feel like, getting the dinosaurs off of the island and pushing them into the real world. Mm-hmm. And thus bringing about the end of humanity, probably.
Yeah.
I feel like. But yeah, and we're just going to throw it... Also... Just gonna real quick throw in the fact that we can clone humans now.
Casual.
Barely addressed, even though it's the whole backbone of that kid's decision to let the dinosaurs go free because they're like me.
Right.
And that was a big old nope from me. So the ending, I was like, if they had gone about this in a different way, like if they had gotten to that ending in a different way, I might have been on board. I kind of like the idea of the dinosaurs being in the real world and like turning it into Planet of the Apes or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like it goes against everything that the original movie stood for, but like it's, but like for what this franchise is now, where it's just like monsters attacking people basically, like all right, fine, I'm into it. But yeah, so there's this little girl in the movie. She's the daughter of James Cromwell's character, who is the never mentioned partner of John Hammond until this movie.
the 5th movie reveal of the silent partner.
Anyway, so she is the supposed granddaughter of James Cromwell's character until it's revealed later in the movie that Rafe Spall, who is the caretaker of James Cromwell's estate, Rafe Spall reveals that she is actually a clone of his daughter who died in a car crash or something.
Right.
And so we can clone humans now, which seems like a much bigger reveal than this movie allows it to be.
Yeah, it seems like that should be the plot of a whole movie.
Right.
But
because where can they go with that? But we'll talk about that in a second. So the end of this movie has the dinosaurs all locked up in one room, and there's this poison gas that's coming up, and Claire and Owen and the little girl and the two assistants, whatever their names were in the room together, and they have the option to hit a big red button, and then when they hit that button, the doors could open up and the dinosaurs could be set free and they could survive, or they could not hit the button and let the dinosaurs go extinct. And Owen's like, don't hit that button, Claire, because he knows if you let dinosaurs into the real world, they will kill everyone. And Claire thinks about it for a second. She's like, well, but they're dinosaurs. They deserve the right to exist too. But she makes the mature decision, a very difficult decision, but the mature decision to not push that button, to let humans continue to survive, right?
Right.
And then, there's a beat, and it's like, wow, this is a powerful moment. The dinosaur's going to die. And then the door opens up, and you see the little girl hit the button. And now the doors open up and all the dinosaurs are free. And so now, not only is this girl a clone, right? And she opened up the doors because they're like me, because they're also clones. But now you have probably the entire death of humanity on this little girl's shoulders.
Yeah, it's like the anti-cloning PSA we always needed but never knew we needed. Where don't clone humans, or they're going to release the dinosaurs to kill humans.
It's just such a bizarre turn of events. Like, I never once thought that cloning humans was an option in a Jurassic Park movie. Like, it just didn't seem like...
I mean, it makes sense, though.
Sure, I guess. But it didn't seem like it was in the wheelhouse of things that would have happened in these movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so funny to think about that, though. Like, the first 3 movies, or specifically at least the first 2... really, it's just the first one, I guess. But they sort of, like, the first 3 sort of, in some weird way, take place, like, on real Earth, right? Like, in the early 90s, gene manipulation and cloning was this, like, bleeding edge technology, right? It's science fiction. It's a science fiction story, basically, right? And they go to great lengths to explain, like, oh, we had to take frog DNA and, like, all this stuff and, like, the lysine contingency. Like, they go to a lot of... I mean, that's partially because of Michael Crichton, I'm sure, who wrote the book, and his, like, weird medical detective stuff. But, like, they go to great lengths to explain sort of the pseudoscience, the Hollywood science behind this. This one, like, we're in full-blown Star Trek shit. Like, yeah, we can make new things, and we're just going to clone humans now. It's fine. No big deal. But also, like, I would where the movie goes, and like we have that little montage of Jeff Goldblum proselytizing about the destruction of humanity over these dinosaurs showing up, like in the surf at the beach and stuff like that.
Yeah,
which that pretty dope shot. Not gonna lie. Like, I'm down if we just go like full blown horror monster movie from here on out.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's going to be Planet of the Apes, but with dinosaurs, and like that's cool. I just feel like the way they went about it is like horrible.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, that was so lame. Like, just where that goes and or how we get there is so lame.
Yeah, but the way they just throw out there that she's a clone, right? Let's just they never once explore the implications of what that means. You're right. Like, are there other human clones out there? That could be a thing. Did anyone else know about this? It seems like the nanny did, right? But she disappears. She's gone from the narrative. She's not in the last 20, 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. She basically gets by Felicia'd. Like, he literally says like, goodbye, miss, whatever, and she walks out of the movie and dies off screen. Like,
we assume. We don't see her, so we don't know if she dies off screen or not. But yeah. Also, where does it end? Like, is BD Wong gonna make like a dinosaur human hybrid in the next movie? Because that could happen. I don't see why it wouldn't. I feel like that's the next logical step based on where this franchise is going.
I mean, that's remember the leaked Jurassic 4, I think, concept art from 15 years ago or whatever?
Raptors with machine guns, right? That's the...
Yeah, let's do it. Militarized raptor humans. I'm in.
It makes no sense. I was very adamant that I wanted Jurassic Park 5 to be one specific thing. And I talked about this in our Jurassic World review. It should have been Fast 5, but with dinosaurs, right? It should have been... It should have been some kind of heist movie where all the characters from all the different Jurassic Park movies have to come together to go pick up this valuable dinosaur egg or DNA on the island, and get back before it explodes or something. Right, like that could have been crazy, right? If they had if they had Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, if they had Julianne Moore and Vince Vaughn, if they had William H. Macy and like the little kid from the third movie who's like survived on the island for like 8 days by himself or something, and if they had Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, like that's a movie. That's a movie right there.
Yeah.
But instead, I feel like it's just so overly complicated. And it doesn't need to be, right? It's a Jurassic Park movie. It's there's dinosaurs. You gotta like run away from them, or occasionally get saved by them, and then that's the movie. That's the end of the movie. You know.
I feel like it somehow took the loose plot of Lost World and just like kind of didn't do anything with it. Like, right, Lost World is they have to go rescue Julianne Moore because she went to like as a documentarian kind of thing. So like it's a rescue mission for her. And while they're on the island, the evil InGen shows up, right, to kidnap or to traffic the dinosaurs off the island. And it becomes like this kind of eco-terrorist thing, right? Or like they're kind of destroying the camps and stuff. And that stuff's kind of dope. Like, you know, I can be on board for that plot. This one, it's like they just get double-crossed. It's like the cheapest way to put that plot together. Because
they get double-crossed immediately.
The volcano erupts immediately. Like, we're there 20 minutes and the volcano's erupted. Like, you think that's going to be the end of the movie, where it's going to, like, we're on the island for this long time, this ticking time bomb. But, like, nope, happens immediately. And it's like, oh, okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, speaking of InGen, right, and, B.D. Wong, I think it's weird that his character has kind of become a villain in these movies. It's just odd, right? Like, he was only in like one scene in the original Jurassic Park. He's not like, but he is like kind of a key character in the creation of the dinosaurs. But Jurassic World kind of makes him be a villain and like has him steal a bunch of like tech as he's like fleeing Jurassic World. And this movie, he's back and he's selling his stuff on the black market. I did actually really like the idea of a black market for dinosaurs. I thought that was like, just silly enough where I was like, okay, this is good, this is cool. Just for whatever reason, like seedy criminal underworlds in my sci-fi or fantasy, like I'm usually about those. So that had that going for it, which was nice. But B.D. Wong's character just ends up in pretty much the exact same place he did at the end of Jurassic World, right? He's like basically the exact same. He steals some more tech and he's like, well, I'm off.
Gotta go
do this again in the next movie.
Yeah, it's so weird that he's back and like is playing that role. Yeah, but I mean, it's fun. Like, it's always cool to see B.D. Wong. Also, I do want to give you credit for totally calling that Jeff Goldblum was going to be in approximately 30 seconds of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, what did you think of the Goldblum scenes when you had? So there's one at the beginning, one at the end.
What's the point?
I agree with that. I felt like having him there. Like, he's kind of fun. Like, I liked seeing him in the role of Ian Malcolm again. Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like he doesn't really feel like he's Ian Malcolm in the last scene, but in the first scene, he's kind of like doing like the jittery Jeff Goldblum thing, and like, but yeah, it just kind of feels like he's there to provide meta commentary on what's going on in the movie, and it's like, that's unnecessary. Like, it feels fan servicey.
Yeah, that's all it was. Like, I agree with the first one. Like, sure, I guess the first scene and when he's testifying, but yeah, it didn't really feel like Malcolm as much as it could. I don't know what that would even feel like, really.
Right. Well, it just felt like Jeff Goldblum showed up on set and read like a cue card or something and left. Like,
that's what it. Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. And that's sad because, like, if Jeff Goldblum's going to be in a movie, I want him in the movie.
Right. You want like a Thor Ragnarok performance from Jeff Goldblum, right?
Yeah.
Where he's Goldblum as Goldblumiest kind of thing. That was great. Because I feel like with Jurassic World and with Independence Day Resurgence, I feel like I mean, he was a pretty major part of Independence Day Resurgence, but it didn't feel like he was like letting loose as much as he could have, And I mean, he's not really like letting loose in the original Independence Day either. But I feel like he has like a little more energy in that first movie. So I feel like this doesn't feel like the Ian Malcolm we know from Jurassic Park, right? The That's Chaos Theory guy, right? Like, it doesn't feel like the same guy, except for a little bit in the beginning. I feel like he is doing like the stuttering thing a little bit, and like it kind of works, but then towards the end, he's just basically delivering like a monologue to the screen where he has to say, "Welcome to Jurassic World," and it's like, okay, that's
got it.
But I did want to talk about so there's the big mansion sequence in the end where like the Indoraptor gets loose. I think there's some cool stuff going on there, right? There's some cool action beats, but literally everybody, and I said this before, literally everybody groaned in my theater when Ted Levine walked into the sleeping Indoraptor's cage.
Yep.
It was like, there's no possible way a human being could be that stupid. Like, it's
not even a little bit.
Like, it was infuriating to watch. And then he gets his hand bit off or whatever, and he dies, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's fun. But like, just the process of getting to that, it's like, and that's the thing. I feel like with Jurassic Park, right, that's a really fun movie filled with really smart characters, right? There's like paleontologists and scientists, and they're all doing like the smartest thing in every situation. Even the kids are like, super hackers and stuff like that. But with every sequel, I feel like they've gotten like progressively dumber, and so to the point where it's like, I don't know, like these are supposed to be smart characters, but they're doing like the dumbest possible thing in every situation. Like with Ted Levine in that situation, or with that guy in the beginning who gets eaten by the whale creature or whatever. He escapes the T-Rex and then gets eaten by a whale or whatever, like a whale dinosaur, whatever it's called. I don't remember what it's called.
A sea dinosaur.
Yeah, a dynasty, if you will.
Hey.
And he's like, looking back, is like, what are you guys talking about? Like, as the T-Rex is like behind him, and it's like, come on, man.
Yeah. It's like the scene in the third one when the Spinosaurus somehow sneaks up on them.
Right.
In the old park.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I don't mind that, because the T-Rex is also very sneaky.
No, you're right.
In the original movie, he's very sneaky. Like, he just pops in. Yeah, like at the end of the movie, he just pops into that building, and nobody knows about it until he's there. And it's like, how did you get here?
You're like 80 feet tall. How'd you sneak in here?
But yeah, otherwise, any other scenes that stood out to you, Mike? I do want to actually mention when the lava erupts, right, and Chris Pratt is sedated, and he wakes up, and he's still like numb, he's unable to move, but the lava is getting closer to him, so he's like trying to flop himself over like a log.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of a funny physical performance. Like it was such a weird beat, I feel like, for this movie, like for what the tone of this movie was. But it really, really reminded me of DiCaprio on Quaaludes in Wolf of Wall Street. Like that was my entire. Like that was all I was thinking of during that scene. I was like, "This is Wolf of Wall Street. He's doing Wolf of Wall Street."
Yeah, he's doing the thing. Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. The scene that I thought of, where he kind of is aware, like he becomes aware, or he makes a joke about, "I can't believe that happened." Basically, on the ship when they are trying to get the blood out of the T-Rex, and he has to dive through its mouth.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, "Did you see that?" Like that reminded me of like a Burt Macklin kind of like type of response, which was funny. But as far as other scenes, I do want to talk about the visual throwback or references. I think the first one is the Brontosaurus, like
when they first get to the island.
Yeah, and like that's the dinosaur that walks by. Like that's the big scene in the first one, I think.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
Where that scene happens later with Blue and the lava is apparently where the car fell out of the tree in the first one. There's like it's like a flipped over, rusted out Jurassic Park Jeep that they're standing in front of. Which, sure, I guess.
I didn't notice that, but that's a cool little Easter egg.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. And then the last one, I actually really enjoyed. I thought was pretty like a good use of this. It felt less like forced. Was the little girl trying to get in the dumbwaiter and she can't close the door as the raptor's running down the hall at her?
Yes,
that was cool. I don't know. And then the pterodactyls flying into the sun, the final shot.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a little more than I gave it credit for in terms of visual references and stuff like that. Yeah, you're right. But I feel like those are references that aren't like the heavy hitter Jurassic Park references. You know what I mean? Like I feel like Jurassic World was just hitting like was scratching the surface and being like, oh, the iconic shot of Goldblum with the flare. We can do that with Bryce Dallas Howard and stuff like that.
Remember Jurassic Park?
Yeah. Remember? Yeah. Remember Jurassic Park? Remember?
That's what they're doing.
Yeah. I will say there's one really great moment in this movie. One great image, at least, and it's as they're leaving the island and looking back on the description, they see the Brachiosaurus standing tall as it's engulfed in the smoke, and it eventually falls. And there was so much like artistry and gravity behind that moment, and if the rest of this movie had like 1/10 of that, like we might have had something here. Like that was a really powerful moment, I thought.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was like a real, almost pulled a tear out, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, I feel like it almost feels like blasphemy for Jurassic. Like in terms of like this movie as a whole, just feels like blasphemy to the original Jurassic Park. Because again, the original Jurassic Park is so much of it is built on the wonder and magic of seeing these dinosaurs like huge and live for the first time. And this movie just destroys most of them. Like just destroys them all. And the ones who don't die are tortured pretty heavily.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like upsetting. It's kind of upsetting to watch.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think the way the ending doesn't like. Is it really going to be like Dino Planet or whatever there's only how many dinosaurs, and how many of them are in pairs, and aren't they all female? Like, how are we gonna
but life finds a way, man.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're not wrong. That's kind of the whole point of the last 5 movies, I guess.
I mean, I feel like, because just the way these movies always play out is like, once dinosaurs are loose, they attack people, right? And so if you set them loose onto the planet, they're gonna attack people. Like, it's gonna
be zombie dinosaurs. Just a slow virus is gonna spread and kill everybody.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. Did you stick around for the after credit scene?
No, I didn't know there was an after credit scene.
It's worthless. It's a it doesn't tease anything or anything. It's just it's a short scene of pterodactyls flying around the Eiffel Tower.
Okay,
and that's it. Like, it could have been at the end of the movie for whatever reason. It's in the after credits.
Just because everything needs an after credit scene now.
Exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, are there any other scenes that stood out to you, Mike? Any other action beats you wanted to hit? Maybe the part where they're in the future ball again? You remember the future ball?
The future ball? I do remember the future ball. No, actually, there's one scene real quick that I want to throw out there that I think is actually like a musical reference, which is real weird, and I might be the only person that notices this because I love Lost World. It's when they're on the in the mansion sequence when they're chased by the Indoraptor outside, and they're on the glass roof of the museum section or whatever. That feels very much like the section of The Lost World where they're in the long grass being chased by the Velociraptors. And I swear they reused the music from that scene from Lost World in that part of Fallen Kingdom, which is real weird. And then Claire, Claire, is that her name? Yeah.
Yes.
Bangs the gun on the pole or whatever, which also happens in that sequence in the Lost World. So it's this weird other reference that I think I might be the only person to pick up on. And I wanted to shout it out because I thought that was cool because I like Lost World.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Otherwise, I feel like that about does it for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Not a movie that we enjoyed that much, but I think we liked it a little more than Jurassic World, or at least I know you did.
Yeah.
It seemed like that anyway.
As much as I could, it's pretty hard to get me to hate something as much as I hate Jurassic World.
That really scarred you for life, I feel like, that movie. But yeah, so I do think this is a better directed movie than Jurassic World. I think Jay Bayona's a talented director. There's some cool action sequences, some fun moments, but overall, didn't really work for either of us. So Mike, where can we find you online this week?
You could find me at MDFilmblog on Twitter.com.
And you can find me at MSmithFilmBlog on Twitter. You can also find my radio shows on WPDH and WRRV. Follow me on Instagram at Radio Mike Sandwich. You can find our podcast and stuff at FilmBook.com, where we do this podcast, and The Complete Works, where we're talking every movie that Nicolas Cage has ever starred in. Thank you so much for listening to FilmBookCast. I'm Mike Smith. That is Mike Decrecio. If you're listening to this review via our podcast on iTunes, subscribe, rate it, take a moment to give us a review. Feedback, compliments, topic discussions, even hate mail can be sent directly to podcast at filmbook.com. Please list the podcast you email about in the title of your email, because we produce just so many different ones, it's hard to keep track. We would love to hear from you. Now join us for the next episode of FilmBookCast, where I think we'll be talking the latest Marvel movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, which comes out on July 6th. I'm looking forward to that. Should be a nice palate cleanser after the torture that Infinity War put me through. Which is kind of what Ant-Man did, right? The original Ant-Man was a palate cleanser right after Age of Ultron, so it was like
look at that.
As soon as the big Avengers movie comes out, this is a nice little small Ant-Man movie to clean things up, which is nice. And you can check out our next Complete Works, where we're talking Nicolas Cage's role in 2011's Trespass, directed by Joel Schumacher. So that should be terrible. Thanks so much for listening, guys. We are out.
In the dark, all the dinosaurs are running wild. Someone let T-Rex out of his pen. I'm afraid those things will harm me, 'cause they sure don't.